Hello and welcome back to GeekVerse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the GeekVerse Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dylan Muss, and today I'm joined once again by Travis Snell. Welcome back to Sidequest. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I am overly full because Easter weekend.
Yeah.
It's one of those weekends where I ate too much, and also because the kids they got Ferrero Rocher like candy eggs. They don't even like them, which is I guess like a good thing because like I'll eat them, but at the
More
same
for
point
you,
that's more for me, which is a good thing and a bad thing because at this age. Start like to put on pounds is a lot easier than losing the pound. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was good. It was a fun Easter weekend. I hope every one of the listeners had a good Easter weekend as well. Whether you celebrate or not, whether you had time off or not, just hope everyone is happy and safe and had some sort of good time. And the Batman today, Dylan, dropped on Crave and HBO Max, so that's what I did today. That was my first time watching at home, the first of many. But yeah, it was nice just to watch in my own comfort. The Batmobile scene. Man, I wish I was in the theaters for that, though. It does not sound the same, but so no, it was a good weekend.
That's funny.
So.
Yeah, I wondered because Maddie in our Discord was posting some stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I've seen the movie like 5 times," and I didn't know if like him just posting about today and doing this whole haircut thing. I don't know if he just like. I was like, man, does he just constantly think about this movie like every day that's gone by since it came out? He just thinks about it. So is he just still thinking about it? But no, I guess that was probably relevant as he's watching it again on Vaughn, so that makes sense. And yeah, Easter for me, it didn't do a whole lot. I'm still getting over the sickness of COVID, so I didn't see any family or anything. But the Friday off was nice. But
yeah, that's good.
Travis, before we get into anything, quick announcement: I have beat Elden Ring. I did it.
Oh, really? Wow,
70-something hours, level 130-ish or something. I've done it. I beat Elden Ring.
Dang. Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah, no, I guess we'll talk about more what we're playing. But yeah, that's great. I was on a roll, and then I slowed down for 2 reasons. One, life, and then when I talk about what we're playing, I got to 2 either hard areas or areas where I wasn't sure to go. So it just is like it was a constant strings of death, and it's one of those where it's just like you need a little break for saying, okay, I've had so much death, I need to walk away, put this down, come back. So I plan on jumping as much more. Like I don't have a really big game. Like I know Strikers is coming up, but that's not a game like I can play that in a weekend, feel fulfilled. Like I don't have any big solo player games, so really it's just that's why I'm still taking my time with Elden Ring because I have nothing else really on the horizon that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to buy this. So but congratulations, sir. That was Did you feel fulfilled when you got to the end there? Did you feel like a big weight off your shoulders?
Yes and no. It's 70-something hours. Like I very rarely play games that are that long. Like I'll end up playing that much of like Spelunky or Ultimate Alliance or Animal Crossing or something. But for like a single player game, from start to finish, I very rarely sign up for that. Like that's way too long for me. So I thought it was going to take me a while yet, and especially when I talked to Dante recently, he beat the game in 170 hours. So he had another 100 hours more than me to beat it, and obviously it's because he's a lot more thorough and doing these things like this. Where I felt like I hit all the major areas, and so I'm kind of surprised that I finished it so quickly. So I don't know what exactly the reason is for that, but I think I loved it. I really enjoyed my time with it, but I think maybe I'm feeling a little bittersweet on it because I feel like all my favorite stuff from the game was like in the first 40-50 hours, and the last like 20 hours or so felt like I'm not as big fan of these areas, or some of these end game boss fights didn't do so much for me. So yeah, I really liked my time with it, but I guess for me it's not like that. This is the best game of all time. This is easily game of the year. Like I'm not quite on that hype level for it, though I still really enjoyed my time with it. And I was thinking like, man, as soon as I'm done, I think I'm gonna, finish and start up a new character. I want to try a different build, but I'm feeling burnt out on it. Like I'm not doing that right now. Maybe in a couple of years. Yeah. But for right now, 70 hours, I'm good. I'm happy to put it on the shelf for now and come back in some other time in the future.
I think that it will be a good game because I did that with Knights of the Republic a lot to return 2 or 3 years later and kind of start afresh, take a different path and whatnot. Because Knights of the Republic, it was like, okay, yeah, you got the light side or dark side, but it's also you can train to be a certain type of Jedi or a certain type of Sith. So I don't know if I'll ever do that because I'm still my goal is just to beat it this year, and that's not even because like it's so hard, just like for time wise, but that's my goal. And then if I beat that, good, and then I might, like I said, I might dip my toes in the other kind of Souls-like game, but I know probably around the time I beat it, I feel like that's when we're gonna start getting more, which we'll talk about later, just more games that are talking. Like
Yeah.
more back half of the year is kind of more the Travis slots of games. That's kind of my goal is like, okay, beat it summer, stuff like that, and then in fall when those heavy hitters hopefully come, then I'll have some room. So
Yeah. Well, and I do want to do another like full spoiler discussion on the game. So I have a couple other friends who have beaten the game now, and that might happen in the next couple weeks. I don't have an exact time, but
yeah, do that one without me.
the game's already been out for a while, so I don't really care when that happens. But look forward to some more content there. But other shout outs, last week me and Taylor reviewed Lego Star Wars. I wanted to shout out that also on the Geek Ultimate Alliance feed. They also did a review over there with Clay and Katie, so go check that out if you wanted more Lego Star Wars discussion. We're reviewing the Halo TV show every week. Join the GeekVerse Discord, fun place, of course. Always talking about the latest trailers and games and all that stuff. And Survivor, you know, if you want to come and join us, talk about Survivor. Subscribe to the Sidequest feed to get the video game focused content. You know, subscribe to our Patreon to get episodes early and ad free. You know, the Twitters, Facebooks, all that stuff. Thank you to Amanda, who makes the music for the show, and Taylor, who does the thumbnails. I have to say, Taylor really clutched up on the thumbnails this morning. He's like, did you didn't put anything in the thumbnail request for this week? I'm like, oh shit, I completely forgot. I put it in there, and then like, you know, within a couple hours, even though he's like working, he still just like crushed these awesome looking thumbnails. So big shouts to him on that. Anything that you would like to shout? I guess I should say next week's episode, I'm going to be joined by Kirkland. I think we're going to be talking about Starfield. There's been a lot of like, there hasn't been a trailer, but there's been a lot of info actually about the game, so we're going to talk about that and then whatever news from this week. So if anyone has any questions, thoughts on that, send that my way. But any shout-outs from you, Travis?
Well, one, I'm excited to listen to that because I've completely missed all that news, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
so
they've surprisingly talked a lot about the game. Like, it's all, you know, screenshots and just like blog posts, but like there's a lot of good content that they've shared, surprisingly.
So this is not like try not to spoil your conversation for next week, but if you're on like a thumbs up or thumbs down for it coming out this year, where are you? You thumbs up right now with all the news coming out?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool.
I think they're waiting until like the E3 time frame. I know it's not E3's happening, but that time frame to do their big
Summer
Xbox
Games Fest
conference where they'll throw it all down and actually show gameplay like they did with Fallout. But yeah, I mean with Fallout, like I don't remember them sharing this much info beforehand, so
yeah,
it is a bit different. But I am feeling pretty confident that it's coming out this year still.
Yeah, no, for other stuff, every movie that's out this month, we got a review, so check that out.
Tons of reviews.
Yeah, and then the big one is obviously in about 2.5 weeks is Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness, which I imagine if time permits, you'll be on that one. So
definitely
that's our next big, like for the movie side, big one. And yeah, oh, and for patrons, if you're listening, After 9 is happening this Saturday at 6 p.m. PST. So join for that. We'll catch up, and everyone's seen a bunch of different movies and whatnot. So, and I'm sure we'll be talking about there's a new Thor trailer. So yeah, if you're Patreon or come join the Phase 2 tier higher, you get a bunch of perks, and you also get to call in. And it's always a good time to catch up with people. So I'm ready to get into the side quest here.
Cool. Yeah, so today there was no real big news things that came out this last week. There was also no new games that came out. So me and Travis here have drummed up some topics. First, we're just going to talk about some of the games that we have been playing, and then we're going to do kind of a deep dive onto Crystal Dynamics, who, you know, made Marvel's Avengers, and they've had some other news recently, and just kind of talk about what's up with them, because it's kind of an interesting situation. And then, you know, Travis is the PlayStation expert, so we're gonna look at Sony's and the rest of PlayStation's 2022, because pretty much everything they've had announced has come out already, and it's you know, April. So that'll be fun to look into what we can expect from them.
VR2, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about some of the games we've been playing. So I mean, we were talking about Elden Ring before. We can continue that because you've been playing some more, but. You know, I think spoilers at this point. Like, the game has been out for a while. I'm curious these two areas that you're at, and you know, you can say them by name. Like, I think, you know, if people are really cautious of that still, like, we'll put up a little warning out there. But go ahead.
Yeah, the good thing for the listeners, Dylan will fill in because I never remember the names. So the two places I was, because I remember we talked about this, was I was at the castle, but then what happened was I found some
Stormvale Castle.
Stormvale Castle. Yeah,
I
found some sort of like chest that brought me to a completely different area that you can tell right away when you get there I'm not supposed to be here, but Travis wanted to explore because also in this area there's lots of XP, so I think I'm at like a level like 45 46 somewhere in there right now, so I still got a little bit to go to get to your, so that's why I think I'm still probably in the 35 to 40 hour gameplay rate because I played so much for review and then I played so much after. Then after that, I was just like life, and then also just tons of movies been coming out. I'm looking forward to May because May Doctor Strange comes out, and then there's like nothing, so that's when I think I can kind of catch up on it. But it's just one of those so much stuff. Same thing this week. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do it, and then you go to in-laws and this and that. So it's like, and having 3 kids, there's always something going on. So so it was there, and then there's this place that I think I described to you a long time ago where it felt like Mordor to me, where there's like the ground is like a ashy sort of white. It just sucks. Like it's awesome, but it sucks because there's these big dogs.
Are you talking about Caelid?
Caelid, yes. Yeah. But where I started, now there was a part in the game where I naturally went to Caelid, and there's some more easier stuff there. But I got booted deep into Caelid, where it was just like, man, these dogs suck, these huge like monsters suck, these things that are just like skulls and they have like pipes coming out and they shoot like everything was a death trap. So it's like there I'm not really killing much except for those guys I told you about before, those little guys that are they're like half your size, but
I think they're called the Vulgar Militia is what they're called. The Vulgar Militia. Yeah, they're funny. They're kind of creepy and terrifying, but also a lot of XP.
Yeah, and that's where so many times I just go back there and farm. If I'm close to level, those guys are like worth 700-800 I kill, and it's easy. You just sneak kill them, but if they see you, boom, boom, you could be dead really fast.
And then they got a whole squad that just like piles in on you. Yeah.
And then you got that big guy at the castle that I've not fought because he still just kills me. So so I went there, and then the castle I explored a lot, but now this is where, and I'll ask you off cast one time, but with castle I have a route out because I'm trying to get to like after the castle, like what's that way in the map, but like the route is really tough because it's just surrounded by like tons of guards with crossbows, a giant and everything, and that's where I'm like, I'm probably at the point though soon, if I don't figure it out, I probably am going to look up some sort of guide or something, because I don't want to be stuck there.
Have you fought the main boss of that area? Because you obviously fought Margit to get in there.
Yes.
But have you fought the main boss of that area?
So when you fight that main boss, is there an animation that pops up?
There's definitely a cutscene. Like you would know for certain.
So no, I haven't. I haven't. No, I feel like I've been, and maybe that's where it's.
Well, it's a huge, like that one castle is like an entire city. It's fucking insane.
And I think where I have to get a guide, because I think my problem was I played the castle, took a long break, and then next time I was at the castle, I did a side mission and I found that chest that got me away. So I think it's one of these things I'm kind of like, what have I explored? What haven't I explored? So that's why I'm gonna, the next time I'm gonna go back there, if not, I probably will look up a guide just because I want to get to that boss and kind of move forward a bit. Because I think
you should go. I think you should continue there because Caelid's a very interesting area because there's nothing blocking you from just going there at the very start of the game. Like you could just walk there in 5 minutes after starting the game, but it just has quite the range. Like it has definitely stuff that's good for your level, like at very low level, but then also scales up to like some of the bosses there. I just went there like right before I ended up finishing the game because that's when it was like finally a good time to fight some of these bosses. So it just has like a huge range to the difficulty of it. So you could cruise around more there, but I think you should finish Stormvale. You'll know when you beat the boss there. It's a really fun boss fight. That's probably my favorite boss in the game actually. And then after that, you might even feel like you're a bit over-leveled when you get past it, I think, with where you're currently at. But then you have like a ton of stuff to explore from there. So I think that's a good place to go.
And I think that was the thing where I took a little break at that point because Caelid is like very, like you said, it varies, but there's lots of bosses where like, hey, I can't really get past here. I can't get past here. And the castle is just getting lost. But I think that's the thing where we talked about in the review where there's definitely, you could bump into a boss at any point and they're massively huge and can just destroy you, right? Or ones that you can beat. But I feel like the areas, the more you could progress, it matches your level ability. Where for me, it's like that's where obviously Caelid is not that. And that's where I know now I've spent a long time there leveling up that I think, like you said, when I get past the castle, I'm ready. I just got to get past it. So I think the next time I boot up, I'll be doing that, but I'm still enjoying it. I still love the game so far. I always get to dive in for just even a little bit, and I'm excited because I can just even XP farm. Because that location I found, I go back there a lot because it's just like instead of risking dying, I'm like, no, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna save, get here, and then go. And then the only other thing I've still been playing lately is Call of Duty with Taylor because that's they did some new changes. They redid Rebirth Island, so they got like a bunch of, it's the same map, but they did things like there used to be the thing called Security Area, and they built that out with like there's towers and bridges. They added like a boat. Oh, cool. They added all these new like kind of add-ons to the maps and everything. But the thing I wanted to bring up is like, I guess it kind of counts up as news, but obviously again they just kind of know their audience because you look at Taylor. But even I'm excited. So in the next I don't know, a month or 2 months. This week, Snoop Dogg goes live, so you can play as Snoop Dogg. So there you go,
All
as
right.
a skin. But the big thing is they're doing some sort of mode that involves Godzilla.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they've been the data miners, they like found it like about months ago, and it was so quiet. I was at the point where I was like, oh man, I don't think it's true. But then they released some teaser video where they're at like a nuke facility, and the thing's spiking because Godzilla obviously like a nuclear weapon with all things, and then at the end you hear his roar and everything like that.
Nice.
So they've not released like what the event is, what you're gonna do. Like, does he just pop up? Is that the thing? So I've actually probably played Call of Duty a little bit less because I just feel like, I don't know. There's just times where I definitely need a break, and I've been more in the break now. But I think that's going to get me back into play a little bit, just even to try the mode, because I don't know what it's going to be. But I think that could
I'd be down
really
to check
fun.
that out. I mean, assuming it's actually a fun thing. But
Yeah.
even if it's just like Verdansk and Godzilla's just cruising around destroying shit, like that would be fun. And if you can, I guess people would band together to want to take him down. Like that could be a cool mechanic where you're against these other people, but you kind of need their help to take down this giant beast. Like that could be a really fun element to it. But they could really do anything with it, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know. Is it just something like the gas gets replaced with Godzilla in the distance and you see him? I'm not sure,
Right.
but it is kind of cool. Like these crossovers are really fun. There's still this rumored like Captain America and Indiana Jones skin apparently coming in, but yeah, so that's gonna be fun.
I gotta be honest. I don't think I care about the Snoop Dogg part. Like I don't know if that's a cool update that I need in there.
I just find it
Fine,
funny
but-
because the next time you play though, Dylan, you're probably gonna see so many Snoop Dogs.
Yeah,
like,
there'll
running
probably be a
around.
whole squad, like a
Yeah.
4-man team that's just all Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you too. Had you ever played the new map that they did? It's Caldera with the new game that came out, Vanguard. Because Verdansk is gone. They booted that, and there's like a completely whole.
Oh, you
new
can't
map.
play Verdansk at all anymore?
No, it's gone. It's replaced with
That's fair.
Caldera, and it's like World War II, the classic and stuff
Right.
like that. But
No,
it's,
I have not played in a long time.
Oh, you'll have to hop
I
in
don't
one
think
night
I've
and try
played
it.
since I got my Xbox Series X, because I definitely would have downloaded on there, and I got that in like June, so it's been a long time since I've played, I think.
Oh yeah, you'll have to jump in one time and try the new map with us because it's fun. It seems like the hardcore base isn't a fan of it, but I like the layout of it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
Well, maybe I'll. I think I got some room.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of
Wait till
terabytes
Godzilla.
there. So I'm
Godzilla's the prime time to jump in just to
right.
even see
And
what
so
it's like.
does
you
that
know?
have a date? Did you mention?
No, they're still just hinting towards it. So last week they
Okay.
dropped the teaser of him, the roar, but they haven't said officially when it's coming. This week, like I said, this week.
Do you think that would be on Caldera or on another map or like a different map?
I think it's called.
Probably not a new whole map.
I think it's gonna be called Dare because I think that's what the cutscene was, and it fits with that kind of World War II aesthetic sort of feel as far as like Godzilla in the past.
Is that
nukes.
map kind of like comparable size to Verdansk?
I think it's bigger. It's big.
Ooh,
There's
even
a
bigger. Holy shit.
There's a
Okay.
lot of open greenery in that map. That's why I think lots of
I
people
see.
don't like it. But it's there's lots of fields, lots of greenery, lots of mountains.
Farmland.
There's a whole mine that you can go in and stuff like that. So yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that's what I've been up to. With no new games really on the horizon, just kind of waiting to Strikers. That's going to be
Right.
that I can't wait for. So
Yeah, I think the next new game for me is Nintendo Switch Sports. You know, that's gonna be fun.
yeah.
I'm excited for that. It'll be 2 episodes from now. We'll be talking about that. But yeah, I have a few games to talk about here. One, I just wanted to update on Weird West that me and Dante reviewed 2 weeks ago. Was it? Maybe 3 weeks ago. I gotta my
I feel
my
like it
time
was 2
frame's
weeks
almost
because
up.
you and
I think it
Taylor
was 2
did
weeks.
Lego, and then it was
That
Weird
sounds
West
about right.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But yeah, that I really enjoyed my time with it, and I'm still playing it. But yeah, I guess that one of the things we talked about in the review is that there was kind of this hints in the game that you're gonna play as like multiple characters on your journey. But when we in our review, we'd only still been on the first character, and I got to say, like they really went above and beyond with these characters. Like the second character you're playing at is like this very supernatural kind of thing. The character I'm playing now, I'm on the 4th character now, is like a werewolf. So it just like completely changes the game and like the way you interact with the world. So already was tons of like fun interactions, and then each character really changes like the places you can go to. Like you play as kind of a Native American character, and so he can go to certain tribal places and talk to people there, go to their camps, but other characters cannot go there. So it's really interesting the way it like changes up the formula of the game. And it's not really like a new game plus, like you still have the same map and you can carry over some of your progress, but you're just kind of experiencing the game from a different perspective and just kind of have a different quest line. And then it's all kind of woven together in a way that like I said, I'm on the 4th and 5th characters now, so it's about to all come together, I think. But for right now, really cool. So once again, that's on Game Pass. Like everyone should check that out because it's really cool. It's a game that just makes me laugh. It's a fun stealth game. It's a fun action game. Story's cool. The world's cool. Like it's just got it all, and it is a smaller indie game. So don't expect that AAA polish necessarily. But even then, I'm still like pretty impressed by the scope of it. For how small of a team and first time that this studio has made a game together. So big props to Weird West.
Yeah.
And then another one I want to shout out was on the Nintendo Switch Online service. They got the Nintendo 64 on there now. And just last week, they put Mario Golf in there, the original Mario Golf game.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Which I have never played. Last year, I picked up Mario Golf Super Rush, like the new one on the Switch. And I love that game. Me and Mads are playing that game all the time. And so I was like really excited. I've since playing that, I've really been wanting to go back and check out the old Mario Golf games. And this is the first one. Have you ever played this game?
Oh yeah, long time ago. I think me and Emily, when we first started dating, there was one weekend where I think it just rained a bunch, and we just bust open that's where we found we like Mario Party. But we just busted open her collection of N64 games and just went through a bunch, and that was definitely one I remember because I played that and the original Mario Kart, and I was like, man, thank God games are the way they are, because it just felt old. It felt so just like, because it just, even I feel Mario Kart compared to Double Dash, it feels so old and so rickety and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's been a minute, but I remember last time it felt the age. That's what I remember. Yeah.
It is such a strange game. First of all, like anyone who has Nintendo Switch Online, you haven't played it. Even like Travis, I'd be curious just to see you like a reaction to the intro, because the game's intro is super weird, where everyone's just like, it's just everyone popping up, like Mario's there, and then like Peach shows up, and then just all these random characters popping up. But the way it's shot and the reactions these characters have is such a it reminds me a lot of the Mario Tennis 64, which I remember was like a very strange intro as well. Like all their sports games, I feel like other than maybe Strikers, just have like very off-putting and bizarre intros where all the characters just show up and start hanging out, but they don't talk, right? Because it's Mario, so it's just very awkward. But it is even just to boot up that intro and see that 5-minute intro is worth the download alone, I think, on that one.
Well, that's a good thing too. A Switch Online, I'm excited for like the next 24 hours and stuff like that, because there's so many more options of games coming out and stuff. And that's one where it's like, oh, definitely. I think this year we've tried to make a list of stuff, and that's one that I would put on there and be like, okay, boot this up. Let's play this for like half an hour, good to go. So, did you enjoy your play experience though?
It's fine. I mean, it definitely, what I realized is, I guess I didn't think when I was playing Mario Golf Super Rush that like I didn't feel like this game had all these great quality of life elements to it. But I gotta say, like from the first one, it's very unclear like how to exactly hit your ball and like what you have access to, and like the sloping and like using the putter is like a nightmare in that game, because you have like 3 putters of varying strength. But like the way they've done it in Super Rush is like really, really good. So I found like they definitely like. It's fun to go back to the roots, but it's definitely not as straightforward as the new one. But I think for me, the craziest thing about it was just all these characters in this game, because the intro is like Mario and then Peach and then this character named Plum, just this random character who's like, she has like this purple outfit, like pigtails and like red eyes. I'm just like, who the fuck is Plum? And then there's like, I have the thing open on my other screen. There's like Harry and like Charlie and Sunny, like all these random people that are just like, they're like Mii's pretty much. Like they're just humanoid people.
They're
and
definitely
it's
trying
so
to hit
bizarre
the anime
because like
core with this Plum character. She's she looks like she's from those shows. Yeah.
Like they've just never appeared in anything ever again, I assume. So it's so strange to me. Like
Mario,
I wonder.
Though. There you go.
Yeah, like this must have been one of the first Mario sports games, at least in 3D, and they definitely tried some things, but I think that the addition of these weird golf like generic characters,
there's like 5 of them.
Yeah, it's I know, like half of the starting roster is like fucking Charlie and like random people.
It'd be so cool
weird
if they in the Mario movie that's coming out in December, if they put some of these characters in as just like random Easter eggs. Like not that they're big to the plot, but just like, oh, this is my friend Charlie and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. That'd be great. Plum needs to make a comeback, They should have brought her back.
I did play as
one.
Plum, and she was kind of weird. Like anytime she anytime I got like over par, which was pretty much all of the time because I was trying to understand how to play this fucking game, she would like hit herself in the head. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, what's with the like self-harm if you fuck up a shot? And like just some of the animations in general, like Peach, if you get over par with Peach, she just like buckles her knees and like falls to the ground, and it just like makes me cringe every time. It's so like, oh, just her knees, the weird polygons.
You gotta
It's
imagine.
a very goofy experience, but definitely worth playing around. Maybe, with a couple drinks or while you're, eating dinner or something like that, just like put it on for some laughs and play around. Because, very strange game. Interesting to see the roots of where this series kind of began.
You gotta imagine, like that's cool. Like Metal Mario is actually in there too, but you gotta
and
imagine.
I see Bowser too, which
Bowser,
is
Wario.
cool.
Like you have to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 of these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta imagine, like obviously they didn't have the legacy they did back then, but when you're a kid and you get this and you see that you see the boards and you're like, oh man, who are these other 7 characters? Like I've unlocked most of these ones, and when you get that first generic person, like, oh no, that's like because you're like, I remember that too before back in the day, internet or like guides and stuff, just getting Smash Bros Melee and not knowing who was those characters.
Yeah.
That was some of the hypest times in my life as far as video game playing. So imagine that with this, but it's just Plum, and it's just like these.
But they're all just
random
generic white people. It's
like imagine if the next Smash that happened, like it was a generic fighter, or fuck, that's what they should bring Plum back when it's Smash, whatever the next title is. Plum be a fighable character.
I'm kind of
at least
down.
a trophy. At least a trophy.
Well,
that'd
actually,
be great.
do Waluigi first, and then we can get into the other Mario character chaos.
They're never doing them. I thought.
And I was just looking at this, and like Waluigi's not in this game, but I think it's because he got introduced in Mario Tennis, which maybe
I don't think he was
this.
around yet. Yeah.
Otherwise, he probably would have been in here.
Which is funny. I feel like even with Smash in the future, like how come they've never done like there's so many Mario maps, but like there should be like a Mario golf map. Like I know there's like
they do. They have like 3 or 2 at least Mario Kart. Levels, but I don't think they've ever had any sports ones. Actually, they don't have like a soccer. Like they could like take one of the strikers maps. Those are crazy.
100%,
or or golf would be cool. Or like even like a Wii Sports map with like the golf. Like I don't know why they've
100%.
never done that. It feels like that could be pretty perfect. Just have like a couple locations you could spawn on.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fun. So anyway, that game's definitely worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
If you have I don't know if I would subscribe just to have access to try it, but if you are already subscribed, please play that game. And then the last, I have 2 other games here, but I think I'll just mention one of them. And this is another game that I've had on my radar for a few months, and just like Xbox Game Pass is killing it right now. Like all the indie games I'm interested in just like are going straight to Game Pass. So another one that just came out a couple weeks ago is called Chinatown Detective Agency, which is an interesting game. It's kind of like Backbone, which I talked about last year, where it's 2D playing mostly, and you're playing as a detective in kind of this. It takes place in like 2040, I think. So, future, but not too far distant future. But they're still kind of digging into that in an interesting way. And yeah, essentially, you're just a detective. You live in Singapore, and you're just taking on these cases. And I think that the interesting part about it from a gameplay perspective is that a lot of the things you're solving require you to go outside the game and like Google things. So for example, you're like have to track down, like you're given these old postcards from like this very specific like 20-year period in like Greek's history, and you have to, or Greece's history, I should say, not Greek's history, Greece's history. And so you kind of like hit up Google, try and find like an image of these postcards, and then find out like which city they were, circulating in. And so most of the missions have some element to this where you have to go outside the game and do some searching, which is kind of fun from a detectives game, because rather than just having, usually in games like this, it's tricky. Like LA Noire, I remember, it's like, well, they kind of have to give away the solution to things in like one of the, you have like 4 options, and like one of them is going to be right. Whereas in this scenario, it's like, well, you're only going to find out the solution if you can actually find it through, Googling around. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Not to mention the game is just like pretty good dialogue, and I'd say the voice acting is surprisingly good for a small indie game. I like the presentation a lot, so it's pretty solid. Do you think you'd play something like this, or is just not interesting?
Well, no, the Google thing sounds interesting. Like honestly, like, even like Weird West, like all these games sound interesting. It's just always the like trying to like same thing. Like okay, it's either I start a new game or I don't beat Elden Ring. That's always the tough thing. So I have this list. Like there's still that game of we talked about at the beginning of the year. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's the Fox and the Hound, or like it's on Game Pass. It was on
I think
PC.
I think that's Backbone. Is that what I was just talking
Maybe it
about?
was Backbone. Yeah, because it's a fun. And I remember you described it, and I was like, man, that just sounds awesome. And it's on my like, one day I'll try to play this. So, no, I'm just fascinated. I've never heard a game like, obviously it makes so much sense nowadays with the tech we have. Like everybody probably, if you have Games Pass, you probably have a working Google machine, you know. But that's just fascinating that you have to use outside means to kind of get further. So that's interesting.
I think the one like problematic thing with it is like you are searching these kind of obscure things on Google, but since other people are playing the game, you know, like one time I was searching something and it was like a Polygon guide for this thing, you know, because I have to like do some searching. So I like honestly, that only really happened once and it didn't like spoil anything. I just saw it in the search things. So obviously, if you could just look up a guide and get the solution, obviously, but I found that it wasn't broken yet, but I feel like the more people that play this game, the search engine could totally fuck with it, and like the solutions could just be floated to the top without you having to do anything. But it's used like I guess to give it another example of how it's used is like in the first I guess mission, you have to like find a book in the library, and so you do that by like you have a passage and you search that passage on Google, and then you find out which book that's from, and then you can use that to track the name of the author, and then go to the right place in the library to find this book in the game. So it's cool. Like you have fun little puzzles like that, and then I think the other part that surprised me about it is because I thought it would be kind of the straightforward linear experience, but essentially you do 3 missions at the start of the game. Each one is with like a different client. And then after that point, the game kind of opens up a bit and you're allowed to choose if you want to continue a quest line with one of those 3 people, or you can kind of take it freelance, if you will, and like just do another mission for each of them and kind of see how you're vibing with them to see which one you want to commit to long term. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And then like they're talking about how it's going to, you know, change the prospect of the game and like what you don't have time for all of these things, so you're gonna have to kind of pick and choose. So I thought that was interesting. And then there is kind of an economy aspect to it as well, where at the end of every month you have to pay rent, which is not something that sounds like, man, I don't want to do that in a video game. But it's interesting because like depending on how well you'll do in your mission, like you have a goal, but then you'll have like a stretch goal essentially, and if you get that, you get like a bonus. But then you're also like flying to all sorts of different places in the world. I saw you can also fly to Toronto, so shout out that you can fly to a Canadian location. I haven't gone there yet because I haven't had to, but like each time you fly somewhere, obviously that costs you money, and you have to like actually book your flight in time and get to the airport on time. But it's not too overbearing. But like one time I flew to the wrong place and just like, you know, blew $1,000 accidentally.
No.
But it's like, you know, I have enough money that's like not a big deal, but you know, you do want to get it right the first time. But yeah, very interesting game. I feel like it's surprisingly ambitious in some of these ways, and so I'm curious to see how some of these things land. And I'm going to keep playing it. And we'll see how successful it is in the kind of, I don't know how long it is, probably not too long. I'm maybe only like an hour and a half in to get past those first 3 missions, and then it opens up more, so we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, once again, on Game Pass. I'm playing it on Xbox, but I think it's probably also on PC Game Pass, and I don't know if it's on PlayStation. It might just be a Game Pass one, so
yeah.
Good
Lots
place
of them are nowadays, unfortunately. So, you know.
And then yeah, there was another game, Far Changing Tides, that I played, another Game Pass one, but I don't think I'll dive right into it. I played it for an hour or two, and it didn't really hook me. It's a cool concept, so maybe check it out. But it didn't really speak to me necessarily. It does have some great music, though. I will say that. So yeah, do you have any other games you want to talk about, or should we take a little break and come back?
No, I'm ready to take the break and get to the next topic.
Sounds good. Okay, we're going to take a little eye break here. We'll come back and talk about some Crystal Dynamics. Okay, and we are back. So I don't know why I want to do this topic, but I've been meaning to talk to you about Marvel's Avengers, and it just hasn't really been topical. It hasn't really been in the news. So I kind of wanted to just look at Crystal Dynamics and talk about the future of this game. But before we talk about Avengers, let's kind of do some groundwork here. So one thing that was announced recently that we didn't talk about on Sidequest yet is that a new Tomb Raider game has been announced. So I guess I don't know if it's a reboot or a Tomb Raider 4 in this kind of new trilogy that they've done. And really, there's nothing that we know about it other than they're switching to Unreal Engine 5. So that's cool. Unreal Engine 5 looks fucking awesome. So that's probably a good sign for what they're going to do technically. But yeah, we know that this game is now just starting development. So don't expect to see a trailer or anything for like at least 2 years, if not longer. Unless they're maybe have been working on it longer and are just saying that for some reason, but I really doubt that's the case. But what do you think about this? I don't know if you ended up playing the whole trilogy.
No.
And where are you at with Tomb Raider?
So I loved that first reboot. I really, really enjoyed it. I got the second one. I think the second one's one of those games that I don't think I finished, and if I didn't leave impression, but I feel like I got it and just kind of, it wasn't bad, but just kind of, it's one of those games that just kind of falls away side. Enough stuff comes out. But that first one, I think they did such a good job bringing it back in the world. It felt like it definitely revitalized the franchise, but kind of not reinvented the wheel as far as like, oh, this is such a huge game that changed. No, but for Tomb Raider, it was a really nice fresh coat of paint. And I think it also, for me, it was how fast they were actually putting out those sequels, which was good because that first one sold well. It did really well. I remember it was one of the first games I bought for PS4 actually, because it was for the PS3, Xbox 360 era at like the end of it. And there wasn't many games out for PS4, so I bought the remastered one. But then when I bought it, I was like, why'd I do this? I'm not really going to play it that much. So I pretty much returned it not too far after. But I've always liked Tomb Raider. I remember fond memories of having on the PS2 and having good times with the blocky Lara Croft. So I think this one where I don't know if I'll ever go back and finish that second one. The third one, who knows? But this is one of these games that now, with it being Unreal Engine 5, I think I would try this with time permitting, because obviously we never know the release dates of these games and what they're versing, etc. So, but I obviously like Unreal Engine 5 looks great. I played a bit of it when me and Kirkland downloaded that Matrix demo they put out with that movie that was like a sandbox of Matrix and Unreal Engine 5. And that was, every time I still go like, oh, I think video games are at their peak. It's like, man, this is crazy and stuff like that. So I think that alone, because that's such a game about environments and exploring, that would get me to do it. Now, obviously, there's going to be tons of games eventually coming out with this engine. But if it is, like I don't know what the timetable is on a bunch of games switching over like a new franchise for a different game. But it just, to me, it's just like they kind of go hand in hand from what I've seen from Unreal's number 5 so far, and just what you do at Tomb Raider. I think I will be checking it out, like I said, barring time permitting or bad reviews, but also could be one of those games that I would wait a little bit. But I just think that's a perfect setting for Tomb Raider. And I hope, to me, it's not a reboot. I think that you could do like a soft reboot, not even soft reboot, just make a 4, but it's a complete new story, use the same voice actors, use the same continuity, but just make it go somewhere else, do something different. So I hope they don't reboot it again, but I could always see them doing it with it being, new generation, new engine. But I hope not. I think they should carry on the legacy.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say as well, because I'm just like you. I played the first 2 and never got around to that trilogy, and I never played any of the old ones actually. So I'm kind of just a new era fan. But I really liked that first one. Second one was pretty good, but I don't know if I finished that one either. And then never got around to the third one, which didn't get as good reviews as the first 2, if I remember correctly. I don't know if people liked it as much, but so it's hard for me to comment on like story wise if they should continue or if they should kind of reboot it again. But yeah, so I guess other than that, we don't really know too much about it, but I'm intrigued, and I think this is definitely one that I could see myself picking up. And I mean, looking at the kind of partnership here, like Marvel's Avengers is on Game Pass right now, and another thing we're going to talk about here soon is that Crystal Dynamics is working with an Xbox studio right now on a game. So I feel like there is a partnership there, and so this would be a pretty big Game Pass pop, I think, if they get that on there, and I could definitely see it. Yeah,
that would be great. I don't think they didn't they do one of the games? It wasn't an exclusive. I thought it was a timed exclusive at one point, or maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was actually a problem with the third one, was that it was a timed exclusive on Xbox, which is probably another reason why I didn't bother to pick it up, is because I wasn't in the Xbox ecosystem when that came out. I think it was the third one, and I think it was a 1-year timed exclusive. It might have been 6 months, but I want to say a year. So
yeah, why did Rise of the Tomb Raider being timed exclusive cause such an outrage? Shout out, everyone talking about shout out to. So yeah, it looks like one of them were, and I think I remember the same thing as you. As one, it didn't review the greatest, and then 2, it was just time. So it's funny because the time ones, it just kind of feels like you only get that with a few things, and obviously you don't watch much sports, but there's something about watching a sports game recorded. It's not the same, because it's just like, it's that live. You probably seem to feel way about.
I feel the same way about Melee for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, right? There's like, you can catch it later, but it doesn't have the same vibe when it's not live. You might have been spoiled or something. So it almost feels like that way with time exclusive, because like there's sometimes just Discord around the game or conversation where it's like, man, people have talked about this, and it's just like, I'll get to it, but it definitely takes off that, oh, I gotta play this, especially if it doesn't review as well. If it's a game like, let's say Elden Ring was timed exclusive to PlayStation 5, sure, I'm sure Xbox people still would have jumped on, but it's the same thing as Death Stranding coming to PC. It's still big, but it's not the same, like, it doesn't have that initial oomph to it,
Well,
but,
it kind of creates bad blood too if the first two games of a trilogy were not exclusive and then the third one is, because then a lot of your audience that you've built up over the course of these two games, and like, pretty critically acclaimed, people really like that, fans and critics alike. So it kind of just sets a bad precedent that you'd come out here and kind of change this up, and essentially it frames it as taking the game away from people who have become fans. So that's kind of not a good way to spin it either. But yeah, that one, we'll talk about that more in the future, but like I said, it's probably gonna be a long time before we hear even like a plot synopsis, before we see a teaser trailer. It's probably gonna be a long time. So we'll come back to that one. But another thing that we know Crystal Dynamics is doing, and this was announced in September of last year, is that I feel like we don't know all the details here, but essentially we just know that Crystal Dynamics is helping out with development of Perfect Dark, which I think is the initiative, is the studio working on that alongside them. But that one's tricky, right? Because we don't know what that means. We don't know if that means like, there's 30 Crystal Dynamics employees who are helping out with this. We don't know if it means half the team. We don't know if it means the majority of the team. We don't know if it was like, we don't know if that was like a temporary thing and they're already done and they're already back working on their own stuff. So we don't really know, but I just wanted to put that out there that potentially some of the team has been busy or is working on that, or is at least divided as they're splitting time between their own games and their other stuff. And I pulled this up, and I don't know how meaningful this is, but Crystal Dynamics apparently has 360 employees. That's a pretty big studio. It's not the biggest in the business, but it's like pretty fair size. And so, I mean, it's hard to say, from our perspective, like, oh, if 30 people are off working on this, like that's a huge hit to the team. Like it's hard for us to really quantify that. But at least those are two things that we know that Crystal Dynamics are working on, other than potentially Avengers. Do you have anything to add on that? I know it's not too much to dig into.
No, I think that'll just be more kind of down the line, maybe when we hear more about Perfect Dark or just what was worked on and stuff like that. Sure. So there's quality people at Crystal Dynamics, so it's not a bad thing. However they helped. So
yeah, and that happens sometimes. Like I know, like Arcane, who I love from Dishonored and Prey and all that, just like randomly did some level design for BioShock 2. Like these things happen where like they'll just they just need support for a certain amount for whatever reason. So they'll get some other studio who is maybe like part of the team is not necessarily needed at this point in development, so they can go off and work on some other stuff. So I don't know if we should dig into like, oh, that's a bad sign for Perfect Dark that they need assistance, or it's a bad sign for Crystal Dynamics that they're trying to get this extra work. I don't know if we can really dig that deep into it from the outside. But now getting to the main topic, which is Marvel's Avengers, which I'll say that, me and Travis did a review for that back in the day. And did you ever do any, like, I guess you probably, maybe it was just a newscast when you talk about like Black Panther and Spider-Man and some other characters.
Yeah, I think I added the Black Panther one as like an add-on to a newscast, and then that was a cutout. Spider-Man, I never did, no.
Okay, so if anyone wants to go back and listen to that for whatever reason, you can go check out those. But yeah, so Marvel's Avengers came out in, what was it? It was 2020, right? Like it was a good while ago now, about 2 years ago, September of 2020. I haven't played the game in a while personally. Like I haven't actually played since Black Panther or Spider-Man were added, but Spider-Man DLC was the last major DLC, I'll say, and that was on November 30th. And since then, like every like few months, I like check out their website and I like see what's going on in the news department, and there's not a lot there, and there's currently no roadmap in terms of like, here's the things we're planning for the next few months or year. So first of all, just what do you think about this game? Like, where are you at with it now? Like, are you interested if they added any new characters? Are you going to go back? Do you think they're going to add any characters or new levels or major updates at this point, or is it just kind of, because they haven't said like we're done development, like as far as I know. So do you think they're just silently going out, or what do you think is going on here?
Well, yeah, for me it's tough because I said on the review, I'll still say it. I always have fun with Avengers, but it's the same thing when we get into as far as like you don't play it that much and not anyone else I know. So it's like the most things I want to do would be with people, or I'm just kind of replaying. And I haven't done everything. There's still tons of stuff that I actually could do, and if like some of those Omega level ones they added for like my Cap, who's like 100 plus, like I could easily get in there. And every time they've added character, I've liked it. I've liked the depth. I liked Spider-Man when I played him. but it's just one of these things where I think I've kind of left it in the past now because there's just other things I gotta play, right? And it's one of these things that it is very fun. I think it is kind of equivalent. It's deeper for specific characters, but I just feel like the playstyle is kind of like a Marvel Alliance where it's not arcadey per se, but it just has it like you're just going through levels, beating up bad guys, having a good time, right? So I always liked it, and I still, I haven't played it since Spider-Man as well either. And I think with the game, the last I had heard about it was the rumor was that the Mighty Thor, aka Jane Foster's Thor, was supposed to be a playable character. So I think they are working on them. I think they're just in a very difficult spot because I think it was whenever they had their last quarterly earnings call, they talked about like Avengers being a big disappointment, and they had talked about too the Guardians game not being a big disappointment, but not hitting the expectations they wanted, which sucked because I know you didn't play. Well, did it come to Game Pass yet?
It is on Game Pass. I have not played it yet. I would like to at some point. But yeah, it's been so busy. But maybe 100%. Now May is a little bit quieter, so maybe that's when I have a chance to jump in there.
But even then, like you didn't play it, but I feel like it surprisingly had a lot better reception than everyone was expecting, like critically wise. Like
definitely,
even like Game of the Year awards, like winning a best story, that's a huge thing. Like that games like Last of Us have won best story and stuff like that. So it was a weaker field, but still I think it reviewed critically a lot better. But it's just they're in this interesting position, I think, with Avengers. So it came out, it disappointed, had some problems, right? And that it went off, like did not sell. I remember the Christmas, it was already like $30 off and stuff like that, like all this stuff. So we've seen that so many times with these games for services, right? But eventually it's like, okay, how can you get them back? And I feel like they had kind of 3 chances to kind of get them back, and they never did. The first one was like, I'd say the roadmap / like the Wakanda pack, because that was like the roadmap showed you everything that was coming, and then that was like, okay, look at this big level. And I really liked the playstyle Black Panther. I really liked the map and the mini stories. That it was all good. I had a great time with it, but that didn't really capture people. Spider-Man, I think, was a big thing, but the problem was, it was just on PlayStation side, so that was one bummer. But also, it didn't come with anything story-wise. It was just Spider-Man's in the game, and that's it. He had like a few like he had a few specific like battle room missions, but like nothing like, at least with Wakanda, he had that story. And then I think what to me is maybe kind of like the death note of it is when it came to Games Pass, it reminds me a lot of like Breaking Bad. Like I was watching that from day one, but then when it went to Netflix, that show blew up, and everybody, like people that I told for years to watch Breaking Bad, were now watching Breaking Bad. And I kind of thought, okay, Games Pass could be that chance. Games Pass could be the time where we see it all the time where a bunch of people jump on a random game like, oh, this is actually not too bad. And at that point, no, it's not Spider-Man, but they had all these new characters. They had the War for Wakanda, all this stuff. And it came out, even like today, I was like, oh, I think I'll actually try it. It came out, and maybe it probably got like a spike for a day or something, but it felt like it didn't happen. It felt like it didn't go to Games Pass. So to me, I think they're at that point where everything that's going to come out was stuff they've probably already worked on or were working on, and they want to get out there. But I think the reason we don't have a roadmap is because it's just going to quietly be sunsetted, and which interests me because with all those missions and stuff, obviously I couldn't link it with you, but like could those all say like I could just play with computers? I imagine so, because I think there is an option. But I think they're just going to put out what they have left. You're just going to get maybe the odd YouTube video or tweet here and there, but I think unfortunately it had many chances to get that second push of it's coming back, and it just didn't. And it's just one of these things that it makes me very interested. And I sometimes wonder too if it got delayed for Suicide Squad, because we've always talked about that. Like they've never said it's a games for service, but they've never not said that, right? And everything we've seen of it looks like that. And I wonder if they look at Avengers, which is a much bigger title than Suicide Squad, oh, how do we avoid that? And maybe them delaying is good, because maybe when that game comes out, they'll have a bunch of content for it, where Avengers was a little lacking. So I think we're near the end as far as the new stuff, and which is unfortunate because I liked it, but at the same time, I can't blame people, because you have only a few times to strike lightning with those type of games, and they never really did, you know.
Yeah. I feel like it has a few more months in it, but I don't think those are going to be huge few months. Like I could see maybe they have one more character, or maybe like 2 maximum. I'd be surprised if it was more than that.
I agree.
That maybe roll out, and hopefully there is some new levels, new areas that come along with that, and maybe some new story content. But even just like a new area and a couple new enemy types, a couple of bosses, and a character or two, like that seems to me like, yes, it's not the dream that they were hoping for, and man, still like the ideal world or like the alternate multiverse world where like this game popped off
Biggest game of the
and
year. Yeah.
and like every like we're getting like 3 or 4 characters every year, new areas, and it lives for years. That would have been a fucking awesome experience if they had managed to get there. And it's too bad that it's just not going to happen at this point. But hopefully they can go out with a bang. Like, I don't think this game would be like a here's our one last update, let it all out and just be done with it kind of thing. I think it'll probably still like get some random monthly events or something for maybe a couple of years, but I don't think any of that would be like new content. I think that would just be like them recycling stuff and like just having the skeleton crew at Crystal Dynamics, whoever's like not busy when they have some free time and they're bored of working on Tomb Raider, they can just, work on some Avengers content for a bit. But I think that's unfortunately going to be like the rest of it.
And it was the other thing I was going to say that, like, and I like the character and they work better. Obviously, it could be good timing, like, because Mighty Thor, Jane Foster is going to be in a movie coming up in 3 months here, right? But I think the thing is that even though Hawkeye and Kate Bishop did play very differently, had different power sets, I think when you get both those characters, people kind of feel cheated and they kind of feel like, it's like the Smash thing where it's like, it's kind of a
bad
clone
move for those to be your first 2 characters.
Yeah, it's kind of a clone of another one, right? Where it's like, this is a similar character, even though they have different moves, like this feels too samey. Same thing as Mighty Thor, where it's like, I'm sure she's going to have some different move sets than Thor Odin's son, but it's I don't think it's enough to pull people in because you have a Thor equivalent character, and I think unfortunately it should have been the other way around. I feel like when we were hyped and wanting DLC characters, I think it was like when we kept talking about Black Panther, the rumors Black Panther, that probably should have been the first one. Obviously, I know that was a bigger cycle because they won the missions, but in a perfect world, you should have led with him and maybe spaced out Clint and Kate, because I think that's the problem. You had those two, and then right now, like I said, Jane Foster, it's like, sure, that's cool, but you have a Thor type character already. So and even like same thing, what if you do like a War Machine? Because then people, they're not going to get back in that because they'll just look at it and be like, oh, I played a character like that already,
Yeah, and I mean, if they were going to do stuff like that, I think it could have been done well, but it had to be like alongside other stuff where that would be like you have your Black Panther and your Spider-Man is like, Black Panther is like your 6-month out character, Spider-Man's like your 1-year anniversary character, and then like sprinkled in between is when you throw those kind of clone-like characters in there. And I'd be down for that. Like if you have like take half of Iron Man moveset, give him a few more moves and put War Machine in there, like cool. Like I think that's a good way that they could like use their resources in creative ways, but that obviously was not what ended up happening. And yeah, it's been a long time. Like I never jumped in for the Wakanda stuff. I never jumped in for the Spider-Man stuff. I still want to at some point, just to check them out, because that's the thing. At the end of the day, like the reason I wanted to do this topic is because like I really enjoyed my time with the game, and like they fucking did so good with those character movesets. They did so good with them, and that's why it's so sad to me that we're not going to get too much more. And I'm part of the problem in a way because I haven't been coming back, and I never spent more money on the game. I also felt like I gave you $80, man. Like I did a pretty good fair amount for games as service. So,
and I think I've said this on the Black Panther one, and when we talked about it once, is lots of times when these games have these problems, like, okay, take some of these assets, put them down. The costumes in those games are fucking ridiculously priced. There's so many times where I've seen one, like I think with that, they did that one big update as kind of like a We're Sorry thing, and they gave everyone a bunch of credits, right? And that kind of got everyone, you could get one free costume. So I saved it, did my Cap Endgame one. And there's others of like $5-10 I probably would have bought because they looked so cool, like, oh, I want this. But when you look into it, it's like sometimes like $25 to $35 minimum because you got to buy the tokens, and to get that, it's like, man, I'm not gonna spend a quarter of this game price to get just
especially
this
when we dropped $80 to get in there in the first place. It's ridiculous.
So it's like I said, even if it just some of that stuff is a bit more reasonable, of either two things: either make it so the in-game currency you can get it a lot quicker, because once you do most of that stuff, you can't get it that quick. It's like pennies, or just bring it down. They never did. I think they were just like, well, we're going to try and get as much money out of it as possible, which I think was a mistake. And I think the other thing is,
it was, going back in time, if it was a day one Game Pass game and I didn't have to spend that $80 on the game, like I probably would have spent, maybe 30 or $40 on the game of just like get a shit ton of tokens and get some characters. But even then, with what you're saying, like that would get me a costume, like or 2 costumes.
Oh yeah.
Like
I'd have to
that's
look
kind
and
of
see if they
ridiculous.
adjusted
I
it,
probably
but
wouldn't have done that in hindsight.
it's nuts. I'll be excited for if the game does ever end and they just kind of go like, okay, like
Everything must go.
yeah, that'd be fun. And I think the other thing is too, it's people mention all the time, but it's just when a genre of games hits, it takes over, and that's the problem with the games and search. There's so many where it's like people are very set in the ones they have already, right? So to be another one, it's kind of like people talk about like what are the biggest streamers. I was like, okay, it's always Netflix, Disney Plus, and then the third one's something else. They're same thing in the gaming world. You got usually like Fortnite, and then someone has another one, and that's usually it. That third one's kind of different for everybody, but people usually have their one or two of the same ones that people bring up. Like even Warzone, like that's obviously still big and comes up a lot, but it's just like it's tough to be that games of service at that price because you look at Warzone. That's how I got into it. That's why I play Call of Duty now. Was so done with Call of Duty, never going back because it was free. And same thing like you just said. I wonder what the world would look like if that game was a day one just free game. Obviously a lot different, but still like imagine that if it was a free game and see where it could have been. Obviously they had their problems, but it's people would be I think a little less hard on it because it's free, so that's cool. But when they're already spent $80 and you kind of beat everything very quickly, okay, what's next? And unfortunately, you lost everybody because there's so many games that, like Assassin's Creed is talking about it being a games and service, like weird stuff like that. You got to compete against now.
So 6 months does the game? Like I was saying, like we might have these random monthly updates, but is it like in terms of like another major? I'll say major update that includes like a character and an area, or even just a character. You think that happens within the next? Do you think we get that past 6 months from now, or is like the next 6 months like the final days of this game?
No, I think the next 6 months you will get because I do believe those rumors because they come up a few times with Jane Foster. I think you'll get that. I think the end of these days are more in the end of this year. I think once we start again that fall realm, that's when it's kind of like, hey, we've had a great time, because I think once you have public knowledge of a company saying this game was a big disappointment for us and it hasn't bounced back, then you just go at some point you got to cut your losses, no matter how many, because I guarantee you somewhere in the world there's someone that picked up this Avengers game. It might be their favorite game in the past 10 years and they're playing it maybe every week, but it's like unfortunately that happens. Look at like obviously it was different, but like Friday 13th, me and Emily loved playing that, but that was for legal reasons. But still sometimes games just they go to the dust when they're not these phenomenal. So I think by the end of this year we could be getting some sunsetting and stuff like that. So,
and especially if the cadence of updates is already where it's at, which is very slow, like it always has been, very long time for these characters compared to other comparable games. And now we're pulling people off this game. They're not even working on it anymore, like as a full-time thing. So that just naturally it's going to slow down even more. If you had one last character, who would you take to go for one last ride?
It's like a new one to come up?
Yeah, one new character, one playable character.
I think
let's do this. One playable character, one like area, is there a certain area that's interesting to you, and then one like boss fight that you think would be really, really sweet. Just close out the game.
Yeah, for boss
who would be
fights,
like the final boss that like destroys the world and that like is the canon ending of the Avengers, is that Galactus crushes everyone.
Well, yeah, it's tough because like you always gotta go like Galactus or Thanos, right? But for me, it's like even the first like batch of side missions in the game, they set up Loki, and you never fight Loki. He's never popped up. He's never came around. So I feel like maybe that's the big payoff because
that'd be cool.
Yeah, they figure out Loki's behind all this stuff, and he never pops up. And then my combo, I think, because you and I have talked about this before, and I think that's been the problem with doing similar characters that were samesies. It's like, give me Wanda and give me the X-Mansion. Now, obviously, that comes with a lot of whole different things, but some sort of set piece where, you got to go help Wanda out there. That would be great. So, yeah, because Wanda, to me, it was like that was a different character type that we could have got. Some more magical projectiles of sort of that ilk. So, because for other Avengers, I think they've hit and the other one, I guess, for me that I won because they did a good power set, so I'm cheating, but is Ant-Man too, because I was completely wrong. I always thought that he was going to be playable, and he never was. It never came out. They never did that, but those would be the two. Wanda Maximoff and I guess Scarlet Witch and Ant-Man. Those would be the two.
Nice. I think Loki could be a really fun like he just has so much going on, and like the he could copy, he could fake out to be like, you could do a little phase where he pretends to be an Iron Man or something and you fight him for a bit. So that could be really cool. I think I would definitely like to see the magic characters of Doctor Strange or Wanda. But I think, and I don't know if he's probably been an Avenger, but I think Daredevil would be like my go-to.
Oh yeah.
I know he's not necessarily known as an Avenger necessarily, but just with like the strengths of the style of character they've made, like I like Black Widow was my favorite character just in terms of the move set, and I think part of that was because it's kind of Tomb Raider-esque in a way, and like they know how to make those fun move sets. But I just think they could make a really fun Daredevil moveset. That would be really sweet.
I agree, but I just hope those Daredevil game rumors are true because they always keep popping up every few months. So that's my fingers crossed.
I guess that's why I say that, is I just feel like I just don't see that happening. I don't know. Like, I'd love to believe the rumors. I'd love to see it for sure, but I just feel like there's so many other characters that make more sense to me. But I would love to see that personally. I'd love to do a fan cast of what I'd like to see from that game. But
yeah,
I guess I just feel like that seems much less likely to me than like a Doctor Strange game, or at this point, like I could see a Scarlet Witch game happening for sure.
See, yeah, I guess I'm the opposite just because I feel like Marvel or somebody would look at the Batman games and be like, do that, but Daredevil, because that move set, those gadgets, everything like that, like. I think you could even then you could do there's a run where Matt Murdock gets arrested. He's outed as Daredevil. He gets arrested and he gets put in prison with all the villains he put away. Now, I'm not saying just to rip off Arkham Asylum, but you literally could just make your version of it. Just like the same way Spider-Man, like they didn't do the same thing as Arkham Asylum, but there's many levels that are like, okay, this is clearly inspired by. So I don't know, because it's always like that Superman game that every few years popped up. But then, to me, that makes sense. So, because the Superman game rumors popped up, but when Suicide Squad was revealed, it came out like, yeah, there were times they were working on a Superman game and it just didn't happen. So that's why it's like, I think there is like smoke to this fire. It's just, is this a game that's actually going to happen? But I want to believe, and I could see it in the next 5 years, a Daredevil game. I think he's prime. He's a great like villain roster. He's great side characters, stuff like that. So. Here's hoping.
I'm excited for Marvel's Midnight Suns. That'll be our next big Marvel game, I think.
Yeah.
So that should be fun. Hopefully that's comes out in the summer. I think that's any final notes on this? I think I've kind of said it all. They haven't given us much to talk about in the last few months. So
that's everything.
What we could. Yeah. All right, let's take our last ad break, and we'll get to our last topic. All right, here we are. One last topic for today. And that is just kind of looking at PlayStation, Sony in 2022. So they've had a pretty big year so far. Just looking at the stuff they have released that are exclusives, that would be Sifu, Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo, and Ghostwire Tokyo. And then there's other stuff, like Elden Ring's huge for the platform. Dying Light 2 is huge for the platform. So there's been other things too, of course, but those would be kind of their four main first-party things. But other than that, like now that Ghostwire has finally come out in the last couple weeks, now we don't really know what is next for them. We know of some games, of course, and we think some of them are coming out this year. We hope some of them are. Other ones might get pushed. Who knows? But we don't really have like anything on the calendar that I can think of immediately, other than definitely some smaller games. Like I know Trek to Yomi is a game they've been promoting a lot, but that's not exclusive. It's kind of an indie game that's coming out soon, but. I guess maybe one place we could start is I don't know if you check out this link that I put in the doc. Actually, I will share a screen here on this one.
Okay.
But
no, I was just looking at the Ghostwire Tokyo numbers, and it didn't do the greatest sales-wise and stuff which I'm not surprised. It doesn't have like the full MPDs, but even like in Japan, it didn't do well, stuff like that. Right. So upcoming, I look forward.
I wanted to bring this up because when we thought about doing this topic, I was looking around just to see what was going on. And like PlayStation has this editorial blog post. I guess just like their 22 games to look forward to in 2022 is the title of this thing. And like I'm just shocked at the fucking production value on this website blog post is insane. I was like, where did this thing come from? Like this is a beautiful website. This is like someone worked on this for 2 years somehow.
This is a PowerPoint you show someone to buy your company or to invest in it. Like we got to do one of these one day. Like why you need to invest in GeekVerse. But it's so funny. Did you see that little controversy this past week about Death Stranding in a banner they put together?
So what was it? Death Stranding posted, I guess, on their Twitter page, like
Yeah.
essentially this image or something like one of these.
It was
images.
like PlayStation Studios pretty much, and it was like
Right.
or PlayStation. Then it was obviously them in their Death Stranding, and Hideo like he could have tweeted at any point, but like for 2 days he like let that sit, and everyone's like, oh, are they being
He
bought?
likes
But
doing
then
that, yeah.
yeah, but then he came and said, no, we're always going to be an independent company. Yet so it got shut down. But for 2 days it was like, oh shit, did they leak something? And they didn't. But it just makes sense. It was just Death Stranding because it is their solo game right now.
Yeah, he's been kind of playing on the edge with that studio that has been talking about like they haven't said Silent Hill, but they've been like hinting at Silent Hill and stuff, and he's kind of been toying with them too, which I think ended up being nothing, but it just had like all these coincidences to it.
Yeah, that was that what was it, abduction game or whatever. That
I forget what the studio is called.
Yeah, because they just Colin Moriarty just had the guy supposedly who was the actual guy.
Right.
But no, and then even Kojima, it's like he's had statues in like Xbox videos. But I think what we talked about before, and we'll talk about another day, is I think this summer we're gonna learn what he's doing because Jeff seems to keep really hinting that like, oh, soon we'll hear. So I do think Summer's Game Fest he's gonna do like Death Stranding,
sure,
and show just a snippet of what he's working on. Just a question of where does it go, you know? So. But like,
yeah, I mean, I guess like Death Stranding had a surprisingly quick development time for what we all expected.
Yeah.
And it came out now in 2019. I mean, like November of 2019, and obviously director's cut and some updates here or there. So it's not like they haven't been just working on a new game the whole time. But that's definitely a long time for them to at least get to a point where they could throw a teaser trailer out there. Because like Death Stranding was pretty early on compared to when it came out, when they started showing off some trailers and stuff.
What's interesting about this banner though is like you have Horizon's out, Ghost Wars out, Gran Turismo out, Elden Ring is out, and then you got just
all the
Ollie
World's out as well, indie game. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay, so you got these two, and one of them I don't think is gonna make it. So you got these two. It's very interesting, like the things to look forward to, but it looks like you're kind of done.
Let's go through this. Let's go through this whole page because it's beautiful. So why not? So
I
looking at this, like number one, they have Horizon Forbidden West. So yeah, also I don't know when this was posted. I don't know if I can go to the bottom if they have like a date.
What is the tier system for this? Is it just like why is Horizon number one?
It's very strange. It is very strange how they mix in first party things with other just random games that to me I have no association with PlayStation.
I feel like the only reason, and Horizon's still a great game. Obviously we had some mixed thoughts on it, but like still, I think the only reason Horizon's number one is because it's exclusive and they knew it was coming out. That's in my opinion. Because to me, I think Horizon's great and big, but Horizon does not. If you had a God of War game coming out, considering from the last one, God of War would be number one on this list.
Yeah, I don't think this is a ranking of like this isn't a ranking, right? This is just like 22 things.
What, did they just randomize it and just went, okay, put this on? You know,
right? It feels like they did to some extent, but then it makes sense for them also put Horizon first.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I laugh.
So anyway, Horizon Forbidden West, of course, that's out already, and then they kind of 2, 3, 4. So 2. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. So this was, I guess, when this came out to PC, and then I guess maybe PlayStation 5 at the same time. So this was back in January. So this came out as well. I don't think this really, like, I kind of forgot this came out. Like, I don't think this really set the world on fire, but it's, once again, the initiative that they're bringing stuff to PC and then just kind of the next gen version. So Uncharted's a big name. Makes sense they throw those. Yeah. I guess also the movie came out, so maybe that's another reason they put this here.
And it did well. Movie's second biggest video game movie of all time, so there you go. So
3 and 4 are your couple third-party games, so Elden Ring and Dying Light 2, Stay Human. So
cheating a bit, but that's fine.
Those came out,
they're
they
coming
came
to
out on
Sony,
PlayStation.
but it's not, that's fine. But
number 5. So this is the next big like headline piece.
Yeah.
And this is where God of War Ragnarok is. So we'll stop here. I feel like we've talked about this 100 times now, but over under, is this game coming out this year, Travis?
Oh, you gotta give me a number though. Over under what? What's the bar?
I guess for me is like is this coming out this year? Yes or no?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I just think because obviously pandemic things work differently. They started the sequel probably a lot sooner than the first one. But I remember when we got that first like teaser look at the reboot or whatever, not even a reboot, but just a reimagined God of War that came out, and then the game came out like 2 years later. we still haven't got that. Now, you don't have to do the same promotion hype for this one because it has that hype. It has like that Breath of the Wild, Last of Us, kind of like how they're going to do the sequel, right? Or, the fifth quote. But I just think it's been way too quiet to hear. It reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild got delayed a lot faster than I thought. I thought it would get delayed, but I didn't think we would have heard about it already as early as March or whatnot. So I think they're going to give it a few more months, but then they will eventually, drop the hammer and decide. I just feel like we would have got even a little bit more because to me, if we don't get anything by summer, which is Summer Games Fest, some conferences, maybe a state of play, I don't see it happening. So, but yeah, gun to my head, if I win the lottery, I'm saying no right now, And
I remember there was talk at one point that Ragnarok, rather than being like a full sequel to the extent of what the first game was, that it was kind of just this half-step thing, like maybe it'd
like
be
a Miles
shorter,
Morales.
Yeah, like a Miles Morales, a shorter experience, where they're still selling it for full price, and whatnot, but just kind of, I guess, digging into certain parts of the first game more before like that next big sequel. I don't know if that's happening. Like, I feel like at this point, this seems to me like, yes, it seems like it's a kind of a direct follow-up, or maybe Atreus looks like he's a bit older here, so maybe it's like a few years down the line. But I think this is going to be that next big thing, and I think the other reason people talked about that is because I think it was like the creative director of the first game is like really only in a producer role of this game. Like, he's not in it as much, so that was kind of interesting as well. But I guess maybe they wanted him to help develop the world, the story, the vision, and then I guess now the rest of the team can kind of take that and fly with it. So I don't know. There's been some weird stuff, but I'm gonna go that it does come out this year. I think it's very end of the year, like a November pocket. But I think they really want this to come out this year, and I think they're gonna make it happen. And I think the development time's always a weird one to say, but this game had no DLC and it came out in 2018, so it's been a while. And especially if it's not that half-step game, and it is like a full sequel, it still is like, okay, well, you have the framework down, you have the basic moveset, you have all these things, you have this world already, so it's really just kind of an iteration in that way. So I think it's possible. that it comes out this year.
Yeah, for me, I've always said this, but I'll say it's for probably the first time I said on Sidequest that the director change and all that stuff, that does have me quite worried. And I do think if this game suffers
in terms of quality, or do you mean like the decision making from Sony to allow that decision?
A bit of both to me. Like, obviously the team can maybe take it and go, but it's such a weird thing. Like, that didn't happen with Last of Us. Like, that didn't happen with Uncharted with Neil Druckmann, which is like he's looked at one of these top guys, right? And Corey really got a name after God of War. So it's real. Like, to me, he went from, he's a developer to, okay, the guy's name. So I all around him a little bit worried about that, as far as I don't think this game's going to come out and be, oh man, they really dropped the ball. Just, could it suffer a little bit? And I don't know. It just feels like a weird move when I heard that, because it just felt like it felt like a easy decision. Like, unless it was a personal thing or he wanted to, but it just felt like an easy decision. Like, this guy just created one of your biggest reimaginings. Wouldn't he be fully on board with the sequel coming up? And that's why when it was the half measure, I kind of understood that. But if this game is more a full game, which to me, if it does even get delayed, it feels more like that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I'll be there. I'm excited.
On this post, at the bottom of all these, they have like release dates, or if the game's already out, they have like some links. This one just says release date TBC 2022. What is TBC? You think it'd be to be announced or to be determined? What does the C stand for in this?
Oh,
to be. I can't even think. Like, I can't even think of like what would make sense. I don't know what the C stands for.
Well, I'm gonna cheat. I'll put it in the old Google, like your video game here, and see what TBC means. So, we're dumb. To be confirmed.
To be confirmed.
And right when I saw it, I'm like, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. So, to be confirmed. 2000. It's a weird way of saying it still, but to be confirmed. 2022.
Yeah. Like, why not to be announced? You know?
Because they got to confirm it, they got to make sure.
Or maybe this means like to be confirmed that it's 2022. Like, maybe they're saying it's not necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right, continuing on here, Gran Turismo 7, which came out and kind of controversial. I guess it had some weird microtransaction stuff, or I don't even know what's going on there. But anyway, that is out already. Yep. Gotham Knights, which is also TBC for 2022.
It does have
right?
a date though now. So they haven't updated this. It is October something, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so maybe PlayStation's not confident on that.
Yeah, like, we don't believe this Arkham crew. But yeah, no, that is October right now. So
Okay, good to know. And then Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which of course came out in March.
yeah,
And
disappointed me in the draft.
yeah, did not live up to your hopes and
No.
dreams. But I've heard some mixed things. I've heard it's a fun experience, even if it's not the most quality experience. So
yeah.
at least that's out. Okay, moving on. 9. This one gets another big splash.
Yeah.
Like these last two, like God of War and Horizon. This is Ghostwire Tokyo, which makes sense because this is a big game for them. They've promoted it a lot. This is weird. 2BC again, 2022. This game is out. So
That's
once again,
how
I feel
unconfident they were.
like I said, like this article probably came out in January, February or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess they haven't updated, or maybe it was just, I guess it was just something they wanted to come out at the start of the year and haven't really gone back to update it. But anyway, that is out as well.
And the Metacritic scores, they were, what was it, like 70s around there for Ghostwire, I think?
Maybe
right?
low 80s, yes. High 70s, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think anyone drafted that in our...
No. And I just feel like that was a game that it came out. I didn't see anything on my timeline. My timeline's not filled with gamers and stuff like that, but I feel like the reviewers put out their impressions, and that's all I hear about. Because I feel like the general consensus...
disappointed to hear that it was like a very checklisty open world thing.
Oh,
to me,
really?
when I heard that, I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want that right now.
Yeah.
I have enough open world games right now as well. Plus, I also don't have a PS5, so I wasn't going to play it anyway. But I was shocked because I just thought the tone, the vibe of it, that just didn't seem to fit at all for me.
No.
So
to me, it just sounded like the narrative that people played it, enjoyed it, had it for a few hours, and then put it down. You know, and it also came out of time. Lots of other great games were already out or coming out, so... I feel like if you are coming out in this March where we just had Elden Ring and for Horizon, and then all the indie games you've listed the past little while, even stuff like Lego Star Wars, you gotta really have the goods, and I don't think Ghostwire Tokyo had the goods to stand up with these other ones. This should have been like an early January, like first in the year game, get people, but you know,
much delayed. So maybe they
that too.
Next up, we got some third-party stuff. So Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is out now. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, which came out at the start of the year, which is actually surprisingly fun. I want to go back and play that. And then Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, which has now been delayed out of this year.
Yeah.
So that one's not happening. The rest
to
of
be confirmed, 2022. Nope.
Yeah. And then 13 Stray. This is one of my most anticipated games. I'm really looking forward to this. This is that kind of cyberpunk future where you play as a cat.
Yeah.
Which just looks so cute and like so much fun, so unique. Release date early 2022. This post says. So once again, not updated.
We're
but
out of early 2022.
That is very interesting to me because I don't remember that ever being announced. So to me, that maybe says that okay, it probably is coming out this year, but also could be like delayed for who knows what reason. But I think this one's interesting because this is if God of War gets kicked, then this is kind of their next biggest thing. I think, like obviously there's third party stuff, but I think in terms of first party exclusive game, which I believe this game is, I think this actually also come to Steam, but I think console exclusive, this might be like their biggest thing.
I still would.
Maybe you disagree. Maybe I'm like got some bias because I'm hyped for the game, but I just don't. I think that just goes to show that we don't know what some of the other first-party PlayStation studios have been working on.
Well, no, I agree with you to that extent. The only one I would put above it, though, is Forspoken. I think if Forspoken does come out,
fair. Yep.
that has a bit more hype with, like, the writing team, and it's been showcased a lot. So I think if Forspoken is this year, that is their next big kind of, let's hope it plays, and I know it's coming up, but I feel like Forspoken has a chance to either be a breakout hit or a Days Gone where it has an audience but doesn't sell the great. Well, even then, it's difficult, right? Because it just reminded me a few months ago when they announced like the sales of Ghost of Tsushima and PlayStation was celebrating, blah, 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 and the creator of Days Gone was like, we hit the same milestone, and they didn't share anything.
Yeah.
At the same time, though,
a lot of bad blood there.
Yeah, at the same time, you don't know the production costs of Days Gone versus Ghost, right? So it could be a bigger thing. But no, if nothing else is coming out that we don't get announced, this is if Forspoken doesn't hit its date and stuff like that. So
next up, Ollie Ollie World, fun skateboarding indie game that has come out already. Salt and Sacrifice. This game looks great. Doesn't have a release date. This is definitely on my radar, so I'm curious. Another indie game. And then Little Devil Inside, which is a game we've seen at I think 2 state of plays now. So I think this is a PlayStation exclusive. If not, it's highly associated with them. This one's definitely on my radar. I'd say I'm excited for this one. but I'm also very curious for more information. But I feel like this one probably will come out this year as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing it a little bit, but it's not jogging the memory. The name sounds familiar, but not as much
Every
as the game.
gameplay, every bit of gameplay is like looks like a completely different game. Like it's going,
Okay,
it's got a
that
lot
would
going
make
on.
sense. Yeah.
Number 17, Sifu, which
Yep.
of course is out. Check out me and Kirkland's review on that game.
I think big success for them too.
Surprisingly big, big success, I would say. Yep.
Big word of mouth, traveled a lot, so I think that kind of did better than they were expecting.
Yeah. Okay. Oxenfree 2, Lost Signals. This is I'd say one of the bigger indie games, kind of, or most anticipated indie games right now. Don't know when this is coming out, but probably a good chance it comes out this year. So I think that's a big one. And then Chia, I don't know if the T is silent in that one, but this game looks cool as well. Once again, kind of waiting to see more information. I don't think this is an exclusive. Like I think this is coming to Switch and stuff. And then Babylon's Fall, which, man, this game came out to just complete silence and like just panned critically and from fans. This game really dropped the ball, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's strange that you have this game that I feel like they didn't like go hard on it, but it came up enough.
Very lowly marketed, yeah.
Yeah, it came up enough on a few state of plays, and then just nothing. So, yeah.
And then the last two here, Forspoken, as you mentioned, and then closing out the list, Lord of the Rings trademark, Gollum trademark. I like that there's two trademarks in there. That's funny.
Yeah, that's a weird one to end it on because you wouldn't even end it on like Call of Duty or so. Like I know, like because people might say, "Oh, but that's not exclusive." Like, yeah, but lots of these other games are exclusive. You think you'd end it on something bigger, but that game, I'm very interested to watch people play it, to listen to reviews and stuff. Forspoken, like I said, I'm very curious. That it says October right there, so it's kind of in that Gotham Knights one. It's a game that we've talked about before. I'm constantly teetering on, and sometimes I see stuff I like, some stuff I don't. And I think for them, I'm interested to see how that does sales wise. But I think it's a game, like I said before, where if it builds a good word of mouth, people will kind of check it out. But again, fall, also another super hard time. So I guess the other thing for me, it's maybe it makes me feel less confident because they did delay it recently, but I just feel like it's strange that it is supposed to be not a big like exclusive, but I feel like this maybe deserves its own splash page. You know, like with it being an exclusive big, you know, they're kind of making it seem like it's a AAA game. Well, I guess it is. So I just feel like it for a game that they don't have too many exclusives, for it not to have this big like, oh, Forspoken's coming out, it seems kind of strange. But again, this was made earlier in the year when they thought some other stuff
I don't know how much stock
to
put in these splashes. Like this, like Stray to me really sticks out. Is like it's kind of strange that one has one of these big splash screens compared to some of these other games. And then I mean Gollum. I don't expect that to be a banger by any means, but I am so excited for it, and I am picking that up day one. I don't even care what the reviews say. So fans, you can expect a review. You can expect some Sidequest content on that because I am very excited to just get into this very strange, weird game in the Lord of the Rings world. So that'll be a fun one.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be interesting. Where I do think there'll be some stuff maybe announced in the summer. I don't know if like that's stuff that's gonna be fully coming out this year, but at least the good thing is there's been reports that, you know, they're gonna become a bit more like this console's gonna be a bit more out in the wild in this year, and it's still selling well. Like it's doing exactly what they want to do. They have no worries because people still will buy it for. I know there's Games Pass, but people still will buy it for. Well, when those big games do come out. You know, and then plus we'll have to see. I was a little disappointed with some of the PlayStation Plus changes as far as it felt like they could have done a bigger rebranding with that. But in the long run, I think the big thing is, and I know you talked about this as well. It's the same thing. It's just like, what are going to be the games? What is going to be it? And I
want to do a deeper dive on that with you when we know some more information. I definitely want to dig into that some more.
Yeah, it'd be down because I thought it was, I think I'm pretty much, it's just so funny. I feel like everyone unanimously agreed that it was 50% good, 50% bad, where it's okay, like pricing's good, you're doing this step, and, you know, classic games, that's great. But it also felt like there's a lot of news left up in the air for something that's so close, because it's June, right? That's the supposed day, so it's just under 2 months. Like we're almost at the end of April here, so we'll be a month away from it. And I just feel like if that had a bigger boom Game Pass feel, then there'd be a bit more hype. But again, like I said, the same point, the PlayStation 5, it's doing what it's doing. Obviously, we just got Horizon out, but there's going to be tons of people that haven't bought a PlayStation 5 yet and maybe want to play Horizon on there. Or there's going to be some other games that are more console exclusive to it. So it's not one of those things where they got to worry because they got stuff down the line. And again, there could be stuff working on we don't even know. So
yeah. Just a couple other games that kind of aren't mentioned on that blog post. One, Hogwarts Legacy, of course, is a game that they're promoting heavily. They did a state of play on it, but that state of play was, of course, after that post. So I'm sure if were updating that or something, they would have definitely included it on there. But I think that they consider that a big one, and I would consider that a big one for them as well. And then I wanted to ask you about this. So we know, I mean, at least they told us that The Last of Us Part 2 was going to be getting multiplayer content similar to the first game had. What was it called? Factions? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, I dabbled in it, I think, for
which apparently was like people really liked that. Like maybe it wasn't for you necessarily, but there was a lot of people who like are still to this day singing the praises of what that multiplayer did, which makes sense. Naughty Dog's a huge studio who make great games, so naturally they'd make some cool multiplayer within that world. And they've talked about making that, and like Last of Us Part 2 came out a while ago now. Like do you think that's still in the works? Is that still a thing? Is that something that they release? And I feel like it's so far removed that it's hard for them to do it like Ghost of Tsushima did, where it's like a few months later, drop in this Legends DLC, and then eventually they broke out Legends and as a PS Plus as its own thing. But it came out so close to the game that it felt like, oh cool, this is like a little post-release content update that like fits in perfectly. But it's so far removed from the game now that I don't know if Last of Us could do the same thing. And I also don't think they'd want to, because they probably could probably make a lot of money by selling it as a separate game. Or if it's a multiplayer only thing and it's smaller, which if it is smaller, I don't know why it's taken so long. Maybe that's a PlayStation Plus thing. I know they're probably not going to do the day one thing, but what do you think is going on with that?
Well, now I can't remember, and this will depend on my answer, and you might have to do a Google search or whatnot. At one point, there was rumors of just like Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima got that director's cut, right? There was rumors of a Last of Us 2 director's cut. Did that ever get confirmed, or is that just still scuttlebutt? I think it's just rumored,
That's the first I'm hearing of that. Okay. I have not heard of that. What you might be thinking of are you thinking of the remake of Last of Us 1? Because that's
I heard
announced,
that,
and that's happening, right?
That I heard, because I remember people just being like, "Do we really need this for PS5?" But no, I had heard rumors or seen rumors, listening on podcasts, but also just like reports of there had been tinkerings of a director's Part 2. Now here's the The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut. Here's the problem where it kind of gets into like things we've talked about earlier. Are these rumors the same thing? Are they different? Are they, is it actually about the multiplayer? Fuzzy. Yeah, let's say they're actually about the multiplayer, but somebody's thinking, oh, they're working on a director's cut, or is it the vice versa? So I feel like if it's not official, I could see something like, hey, we're doing the director's cut, it's gonna have like a little extra here, but it's also gonna include this multiplayer. And I could see that, because if it's just a director's cut and that's a real thing, I don't know what would be holding it up too much, other than they might add like a little story, like a little DLC story with Ellie, or oh god, I can't remember that everyone that,
because they did that for the first game, right? Like they had a single player DLC as well, which was called like, I forget, it was.
Yeah, I can't remember it either. But yeah, it's set up like Ellie's love interest. And I can't remember the Abby, right? She's the one that was like the controversial figure in this one, where you could, I think they would focus on her for that. So I feel like if this director's cut is true, that could be the thing holding it back, that they just want to do one big launch instead of it getting murky of like, oh, there's a multiplayer out, but there's also director's cut. I think that it makes sense that there's going to be something more Last of Us Part 2 coming out, whether it is the director's cut, the multiplayer, or both, because that is one studio that, it is going to be interesting, because Uncharted supposedly, done for now. Last of Us, it's funny because it feels like right when that game came out, Neil Druckmann was pretty hard on as far as like, yeah, maybe I could see a third, like I think someone asked him, could you do a third? And he's like, yeah, I could, but I don't really have any interest in that. But then I think in the last year when he answered that, it was like a much different answer. It's like, well, there's lots of stories, so it's just like, to me, I'm much more interested in Naughty Dog if they don't have Last of Us and they don't have Uncharted next. What are they going to do? Because you got to think about that. Last of Us and Uncharted coming out from that studio, creating two huge games that like change consoles and like. So I hope that it's they're finishing off Last of Us 2 stuff and then they're going to move on. But yeah, I could see it because like I said, I would like to try it again if they put in a multiplayer because I tried it, just wasn't for me. And I guess maybe it's just because when I looked at multiplayer in the first house, like just felt weird, just like this is not a game I'm looking for that. But yeah, I think we'll get something. It's just like I just don't know the packaging. I don't know if it's by itself or if it's in a grander scheme of Last of Us goodness.
Yeah, like it could be like you get a discount if you own part 2 or something. But I mean, just I guess looking at Naughty Dog right now, they're kind of in a weird spot where and I don't think like PlayStation announced the Last of Us 1 remake. This is kind of more like the scoopers and stuff like this talking about it. But when I heard about this, it was like, and to be clear, we're talking about a remake, not Last of Us 1 remaster. This is a remake. Like they're literally building the game from scratch is what we're hearing. And it's like, well, why? That's such a weird thing to do. But I guess word on the street was that was because the studio just has nothing else to work on right now. Like they don't have their next Uncharted or their next Last of Us game. So like I guess the multiplayer thing would be, I think Naughty Dog has like hundreds and hundreds of employees. You would expect that not all of them would necessarily be working on this multiplayer thing. Like, story people, narrative people, like how much are they really needing to invest in that? So your team is kind of split and some of them are working on the remake. Yeah. And then like Neil Druckmann's like also working on the TV show. So I don't know how much he's in the office day to day working on these games that they're doing too. So they are kind of in a weird spot where I guess like maybe in that logic, it does make sense to do that Last of Us 1 remake, which I mean, that'll make money, whatever. It's very unexciting and kind of seems like a waste of such talented developers, but whatever, they're doing it. But yeah, this multiplayer, man, it's been a long time. And I would be really curious because I mean, for me, the thing that holds me back from Naughty Dog games is that I don't like the gameplay. So I'm not necessarily that interested in like a multiplayer only thing that is just like all about this competitive gameplay.
Pure gameplay.
But if it was a free to play thing, I would definitely check it out. Or if it was like a cheaper like $20-$30 experience where you can get this multiplayer, or they maybe have a free weekend where you can check it out through the PlayStation Plus subscription thing, like those demos that they're talking about, then I'd definitely check that out. I'd be curious to see. And yeah, I just wonder like, there's definitely an era there where most single-player games, or at least it felt like most single-player games, had some multiplayer tacked on.
Yeah.
And Uncharted was part of that. Like I remember Uncharted had multiplayer, and it felt like this is really weird. Who's playing this? So it's interesting to me that like Naughty Dog is kind of not still doing that. It feels very different with Last of Us, but there is still kind of that element where it's like, okay, let's take this game, make this big-ass single-player game, and then do some multiplayer suite alongside it. But in terms of the marketing of it, it's kind of weird that they've taken so long to do it. And like they haven't announced that it's been canceled, so I'm guessing they're still working on it. But maybe it was canceled and they just haven't talked about it, or who knows. But once again, I mean, also PlayStation's initiative for games as a service right now is like off the chain. Like they're all on this multiplayer thing. So you would think they'd want to do it for one of their biggest IP in Last of Us. So
yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Where you could easily have that Summer Games Fest. Last of Us little teaser, and then boom, this fall it's coming out. Because it's one of those things.
I can definitely see that being the case for sure. Yeah, shorter marketing window.
It doesn't need lots of promotion. Those things, like you look at Ghost of Tsushima Legends, didn't really get any marketing push. Just like, hey, it's coming out. There's a state of play. It's here. So I could easily see one teaser out this September. That's it. Done.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it. Like I'm sure there's other things going on in the PlayStation world, or maybe there's been some other rumored things that I didn't have on my list here, but overall, like there definitely is some things to look forward to, and I think really just kind of, for me, it's like, okay, if God of War does not happen, what are they planning in its place? Or do they feel like between Stray and Gotham Knights and Hogwarts Legacy and Forspoken, and I mean, now that I mention it, that's like, those are 4 pretty badass looking games, right? They're like, that's a good enough fall, even if only 1 or 2 of those things are exclusive to your platform. Like I still think that's a pretty spicy fall, not to mention that PlayStation Plus, whatever it's called, Essential and Premium, like that stuff's coming out in June, so that'll probably get some nice rollout stuff for the rest of the year. So they got a lot going on. They're keeping busy, surprisingly.
I feel like it's the latter of what you said, where if it doesn't hit, oh well, we got other stuff. Because I think what happens is they've already had a good year. I think they'll continue to have a good year, But I think obviously if you end with God of War, I think that gets the good year to a great year because that'll have good as long as it goes well, good sales, and you can pump the consoles around holiday time. But if you look at the other end of it, where you'll have not exclusive, but Suicide Squad hopefully coming out next year. But I don't think it's like. How are you feeling about a 2023 fall release date of Spider-Man 2?
Oh man, Insomniac. They
So
just
next
released
fall.
Ratchet and Clank last year. They
Yeah.
released Miles Morales a few months before that. And
I
that seems too
22.
soon to me.
I think I said 22. I meant 23 if I said 22. Sorry. Yeah,
That
sorry.
still seems like a bit too soon. But once again, like if it's the same thing where they're building off the framework of Spider-Man 2018, and if it's for me, I think maybe the answer to that question is the game still in New York? If it is, then yes, I could see it. If it's not, and it's like they're building a whole new city from the ground up, like London or whatever the fuck they do, then I think it's going to take longer. But yeah, if it's New York, then I don't see why not. Like just add some new changes to it.
Yeah, I think it's New York because I think the Wolverine game will be where you get to do a new landscape, a new place, and stuff like that. So no,
Spider-Man, you got to do New York, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
You can do other stuff to shake it up and add new areas around. You know,
you can do a mission out of New York or a DLC out of New York, but I don't think the main game you take it out of there, especially if there's Oscorp. But no, I still think there's a chance that did Spider-Man, the first game, it came out in 2018, right?
2018, yeah.
So
and then DLC, all the DLCs came out pretty quick because, like I said, once again, my conspiracy theory that they had it finished and just pulled it from the game to sell it. And once again, if the sequel is Spider-Man and Miles Morales teaming up, like you already got the framework of those movesets ironed out. So it seems like obviously it's not as easy as copy pasting when you're making a brand new game, but it feels like they actually have a lot of the framework down that very well that could come out next year. Very very understandably.
Yeah, I think
God of War could be that earlier in the year.
Yes,
just like that's what you're
just
going
like
for,
2018.
right?
Yeah, I have a feeling that we could see 5 years later the exact same pattern. New God of War starts off the year, Spider-Man ends it, and I don't
Horizon 5 years later, like everything is just on a 5-year cycle.
Yeah. And I don't see it happen next year because it's been so light. But if by chance, if you were to book it, or sorry, in the middle of that year or near even December, if they were by chance to have that timed exclusive of KOTOR ready to go, that's like. I don't think it is next year. I actually do think Spider-Man is next year, the fall, and I think God of War is. But whenever KOTOR does come out, I do think that's going to be very big for them because that's just a game that. How many times have I feel like even in your circles you just hear people talk about like, oh, a remake of this or like that. That's just like in every review for an RPG that's always cited. Like it's so. I think with that being, especially. There's kind of this pushback in Star Wars where it feels like lots of people don't like that they took it and they kind of disregarded the like legends. So it's like this is the first time it feels for the video games like, oh man, we're getting some of that nostalgia back. So I feel, who knows, but again, that could be great where you could have like a God of War and Spider-Man next year and then the year after KOTOR, which it's timed. The rumor I think is 1 year, but still that's one where I think the Sony people are like, they're going to be all over that one. It's going to be a massive seller for them. So they got some stuff cooking. It's just a question of when they're going to serve it. So
definitely. Well, I think that was a pretty good deep dive, covering Sony, and I'm sure we'll get.
She'll announce some game tomorrow for Sony, like a big exclusive. In the
I mean, I think a state of play is on the horizon here, like in the next, maybe in May or June also makes sense, but I could definitely see that being where we hear about a couple other new games that we hadn't thought of from some of their other smaller indie teams, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty good. Any final thoughts today? Or are we ready to send it home?
No, I'm ready. This was fun. Yeah, we didn't have lots of like huge news, but we had some good conversations and caught up. And it's good to kind of look back because I didn't even. I honestly, when you, that's why I wanted to do topic when we were talking about what we could talk about. I didn't even think about like, man, if God of War does come out or doesn't come out, there's not too much. Obviously, the good thing is the console's just selling overall. But it's like, it's an interesting time. But Sony's been that way a few times, right? Where they've had some years that are lighter and then just years that just get stacked. So
yeah,
I think it's just the good thing is there's just so much stuff going on in video games. It sucks in the fall they'll be missing out on Starfield and stuff, but there's other ones to come out. So
it's true. Yeah, they got a lot of stuff. And I guess maybe I'll say this here, but like me and Taylor did a month ago, where we did like kind of an Xbox fantasy roster for a Xbox platform fighter. Me and Travis are doing the same for PlayStation. Bit busy this month, but I think next month is probably when we're going to do that one as an Otamana episode. So I'm very excited for that.
End of May is what we're going to try to shoot for because that's when I got some time off. So I am in Vancouver for like 2 days for a family event, but then like I think that there's going to be time to do that. So no, I want to do that because that'll be fun. So, but no, it's always thanks for having me back. It's always fun talking some video games, and I'm fine to come on when there's little topics because I can blabber and go a little bit, and hopefully, and then hopefully next time I'm not sure. I guess probably for reviews wise will probably be Striker. That's the next game review I'll be on because that's can't wait. That's just the hype. Yeah, that's just like now that I've gone the Batman and Moon Knight. It's like, man, for like big things like Strikers, it's in that par of like it's not the Batman tier, but it's in that tier just below. Because man, I just didn't think we'd be getting one this year. I knew we'd be. I always believed you when you said, "Oh, they'll make it eventually," but I did not think this year because it just felt like no rumors at all. So I'm kind of counting down those days like Strikers. I can't wait. I'm just so excited.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. This was a very fun episode for what was a slow news week and slow video game release calendar week. So, Travis, thank you for joining me. Next week, I will be joined by Kirkland once again to talk about more video games. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. See ya.